Darwinian evolution. Junk science.
We're taking another look at evolution, Darwinianism. Only this time we're looking at it from another perspective. And as you can see, our theme is occult evolution. The diagram here, as above, so below, is the credo of the occult. And it basically means that everything that we see in the natural world originates in the spiritual world. And to some extent, I think we would have to agree that that's true, since the Creator created the physical world, but that's not exactly how they mean it. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go along. Now, we're going to look at evolution in a different way. And this kind of takes in what we've seen already, but it takes us another step beyond to look at the true roots of the evolution doctrine. We need to know about this because this is just so ever present throughout our culture. We need to understand what it's really all about and where it's going. Science from Seance? Kind of strange, isn't it? And let me show you what I'm talking about here. Emanuel Swedenborg. He was the man that invented the nebular hypothesis. Now, I'm sure you've seen documentaries on the Discovery Channel or somewhere like that about how the planets formed. And they show you a nifty little graphic. You have this nebula all swirling around, and then all the planets all form. You know where that idea came from? That's the nebular hypothesis from Emanuel Swedenborg. You know where he got that idea? He claimed that he obtained the idea from spirits during a seance. Now, that's kind of mind-blowing, I think. Because most people think about evolution that it's all pure science. It's all based on logic. And the truth is, the more you dig into this whole realm that surrounds evolution, the more you find so much of it is coming directly from demons. And then it's incorporated in to the evolutionary narrative. Now here we have another example that I think is very interesting. Robert Chambers. Before Darwin ever wrote his book, Robert Chambers had written Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation, which, interestingly, also outlines a theory of evolution. Only he wrote it in 1844, well before Darwin's book, Origin of Species. The truth is, there were a number of people around this time period that were being drawn to this idea of some kind of an evolutionary development of mankind. And what was actually drawing these men to this idea? Well, in the case of Robert Chambers, he was an occultist. And he frequently went to seances where he talked to spirits. And this is all documented. And he was accepted as a man of science, even while a lot of his ideas came to him from the spirits. Oh, by the way, in this picture, it's showing a dead person actually sort of arising in the room. There's reports of this actually happening with these people. Here's another man. You probably haven't heard of Alfred Russel Wallace if you just have a casual knowledge of evolution. If you happen to know more about evolution, then what you would know is that Alfred Russel Wallace is known for having independently conceived the theory of evolution through natural selection. In other words, the same theory as Darwin's theory. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that believe that Darwin came out with his book so he could get the theory out there before Wallace did, so he could be credited with it. Both of these men knew each other, they wrote to each other. And what was interesting about Wallace, beyond the fact that he came up with this theory himself, is that Wallace, too, was involved with the occult. He actually experimented himself with hypnosis, mesmerism, later became involved with spiritualism, more seances, more talking to the dead, talking to spirits. And in fact, this is an actual picture that was taken that purports to be Wallace being visited by his dead mother. Actually photographed. For me, as I researched this, I found this fairly astounding. To see that all these main figures back in that time when evolution was being formed were all receiving messages from the spirit realm. And today, these men are all seen as giants of science. Isn't that amazing? Now, here's the craziest one of all. We're back to Charles Darwin. Now, this is not a picture of Charles Darwin. I think you know that. This is a picture that's typical of the witch doctors that Charles Darwin consulted. Charles Darwin had a famous trip on a ship called the Beagle. You can't make this stuff up. Okay? And he was headed towards the Galapagos Island, where he was going to catalog various species of flora and fauna. And before he got there, he made many stops in South America, which at that time, South America was extremely primitive. There were many primitive areas. Now, there still are primitive peoples, particularly along the Amazon. But these were even more accessible in those times. And so, as they were traveling, Darwin would stop to commune with the natives, and he would involve himself in these spiritistic activities of the witch doctors in these various tribes, taking part in their spiritual trances and receiving information from these spirits. Now, the reason we know about this is the captain of the Beagle happened to be a devout Christian. And he was feeling very worried about Darwin's soul because of the things that he was seeing. One thing that he said, which I've written down here, Charles Darwin became gripped with a new sense of purpose for his life to find evidence to disprove the existence of God. That's what came out of his spiritual intercourse with these demonic spirits through these mediums. Interestingly, when he was writing out his science, he didn't mention anything about witch doctors. He didn't mention anything about how this came upon him to do this. But it is interesting about Darwin that when he was actually doing his field work, he was very strong. And then after he wrote his book, which basically was written to try and discredit the idea of a creator, he became very ill and very upset and very troubled and continued to be that way for the rest of his life. No doubt haunted by demonic spirits. This man was a spiritualist in the time of Darwin. There was a very big spiritualist movement at that time, as you can probably imagine. A lot of the elite were involved in it. And basically, he commented on Darwin's book. He said essentially that it's not contrary to the spiritualist idea, it's just incomplete. It doesn't include the spiritist side of the story. Because you see, for really many centuries, it has been believed that there's such a thing as spiritual evolution. When they took the pharaohs and they embalmed them and they put them in the great pyramids, what they believed happened is that the pharaoh was then ascended to become a god. In a sense, evolved to a higher plane. None of this is a new idea. And spiritualists still believe this. But what they believe is that as we continue to evolve, if we evolve spiritually along with the physical evolution, that in the flesh we can evolve into godlike beings.
Was this video informative? Click the like button below to help spread the word to others. Feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss out on more amazing content from Eliyahu Ben David.